Hi everyone, I think you've all joined us now. Welcome to today's webinar from Insights to Action, Embedding Sustainability in Learning Experiences from Higher Education. I'm Rachel, I'm the Head of Research and Impact at SOS UK, and I'm going to kick off with an intro to the session today. So over the next hour, we'll be introducing SOS UK's annual Sustainability Skills Survey and sharing insights from our latest round of research, which we're publishing today. We'll then move on to hearing a bit more about how those insights have informed work to embed sustainability within teaching and learning through our Responsible Futures programme, with some case studies of two institutions who are taking part in the programme, as well as an overview of the programme as a whole. At the end of the session, we'll have space for some questions and discussion. So if there's anything you want to ask, please add your question via the Q&A function within this webinar. That's on the top menu, it should be. There's two little speech bubbles with Q&A in. If you just drop your question in there, and we'll pick that up in the Q&A session at the end. So moving on to some more formal introductions. So hopefully many of you know us already, but in case you're new to SOS UK, we're a UK charity transforming education so that people protect climate, nature. We're working to change the way we teach, what we learn, and how that's assessed, so that climate and nature are a priority. We want to make sure that the places where we learn show us what's possible, helping us to help nature and climate. And finally, we want to ensure that students from every background can play their role in protecting and building a better world. In terms of the session today, you'll hear from a range of people throughout the session. So myself and also my colleagues Molly Russell and Marta Nowitzka at SOS UK. And then we'll hear from colleagues Teresa and James from the Open University and Alison and Nair from Mohawk College in Canada. Before we delve into the findings, I'm just going to give a bit of context to the Sustainability Skills Survey. Again, this might be not something that you're kind of overly familiar with, but hopefully you've at least heard of it before, given that we've been around for 15 years doing this research. So it originally started back in 2010-2011 academic year. And we were first commissioned to carry out the research by the Higher Education Academy, which is now Advanced HE in the UK. Our aim was to build a fuller picture of students' learning experience on sustainability, and also to understand their attitudes towards learning in this area. We started off focusing just on first-year undergraduates back in that 2010-11 academic year, but subsequently we've expanded the sample to include all taught higher education courses and years of study. Currently, all students in further education, higher education and apprentices can actually answer the survey, but today we're just focused on the results from higher education students. Over the 15 years of the research, we've updated the questions at 2 points, and in both instances that was to bring the content of the survey up to date with developments in ESD across the sector, and I'll touch on a bit more about the latest updates in a bit. So I did actually add up all of the responses that we've gained over the 15 years of surveys, and taking into account this latest round in 24-25, we've actually had over 111,200 responses from students across the UK, which is a huge data set. Today we'll be mainly focused on the 24-25 survey, and a bit more detail about that in terms of the design. So as I mentioned, we updated the questions this year, and to do that we took into account the revised guidance on ESD by the Quality Assurance Agency and Advanced AG. We also took into account kind of a shift in focus in this area towards decolonisation and decarbonisation of the curriculum, the increased prominence of the nature crisis, and also the rise of the green skills and green jobs agenda. Whilst we made quite substantial updates to the questions this year, we did keep some of the key tracker questions that we've been asking for the full 15 years of the research, just so we can carry on monitoring those long-term trends. In terms of the delivery of the survey, it's live for completion each year during October and November. And we have two routes of promoting the survey each year. Firstly, via contacts within NUS, that's shared via a student database that they run. But we also partner with individual institutions and their student unions to gather responses from local universities and colleges. In return, those gathering 100 responses or more receive their students' data. And just a big thank you to everyone on the call who's helped with that promotion over the years. It wouldn't be a successful piece of research, and we certainly wouldn't have reached that total of over 100,000 responses without your help. Each year we encourage neutral communications when promoting the survey. So advice is to avoid references to environmental issues or sustainability, just so that we are reaching a range of students and trying to reduce bias that might be there in terms of the likelihood of responding to a survey specifically about environmental issues or sustainability. In 2024-25, we had 9,973 responses from higher education students. And the data that my colleague Molly is going to be sharing with you shortly has been weighted according to statistics available from the Higher Education Statistics Agency. Before we get onto those findings from this year, it's worth touching on our sustainability skills. So we use the skills to encapsulate a whole range of different aspects of learning, so competencies, knowledge, understanding, as well as practical skills. And this is one aspect that we updated in the research this year. And they're shown on screen now. Again, we used a range of sources to come up with these skills. They're not meant to be an exhaustive list of the ESD competencies, but were the ones that come up most prevalently in different frameworks that are associated with ESD outcomes. So I'll hand it over now to Molly, who's going to take you through the findings from this year.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm so delighted to be presenting the findings of this really amazing research. So our survey can be split roughly into three sections, which is expectations for education sustainability, experiences of sustainability in education, and lastly, sustainability beyond education. So that's how I'm going to be talking through the findings today. I'm going to start with our respondents' expectations for education and sustainability. So we asked respondents what factors influence their choice of place of study. The most important factors were employment prospects after completing the course. 86% of respondents said this was important. The reputation of the place of study, 85%. And the reputation of the course. From this question, we can also see the role, how important the role in institutions' commitment to environmental and social justice play when students are deciding where they want to study. You can see that those first top two, how seriously the place of study takes issues affecting students and how seriously it takes progressing equality, diversity and inclusion, are important to students and make that top 10 list, which is in the chart on the left. But also, half of respondents reported that how seriously the place of study takes its role in economic, political and cultural issues, and how seriously it takes environmental issues is also important to students when deciding where they want to study. So moving on then, the majority, so 86% of our respondents, agreed that their place of study should be obliged to develop students' understandings and skills that make a positive difference to society and the environment as part of their courses. You can see from this chart that actually represents a 5% increase from our latest or our previous wave of research in 2023. In terms of students' expectations of their place of study to take action on sustainability, the majority of our respondents, 84%, reported that sustainable development is something which places of study should actively incorporate and promote, while 80% said that they thought it was something their students' unions should incorporate and promote. So moving on then to respondents' experiences of sustainability in education, we asked students if they want to learn more about sustainability. Over half of our respondents, so 55%, said that they would like to learn more about sustainable development. We also asked them their reasons for wanting to learn more. These are listed on the slide, so just to read a few out. To better understand how social, economic, and environmental factors intersect. I would like to be aware of the actions I can take to make a positive impact on the world. Someone said that sustainable development was a relevant topic that should be included in any curriculum that hopes to be relevant to the world today. And the one in the pink speech bubble, which I really like, which is, I believe in creating a lasting positive impact on my peers and on future generations. If we then look at historic trends, we can see that the reporting that they would like to learn about sustainable development has decreased since our previous wave of research in 2023. But we can also see that 2023 represented a decrease from its previous wave of research in 2022. I think it's important to note that this finding is not in isolation, and it often mirrors other research that we do at SOS UK and kind of similar studies that are taking place in climate and education. Our survey, so the Sustainability Skills Survey, will continue to monitor these trends when we run the survey next year. But it's important to note that further research is really needed to fully understand why these shifts are happening. And also that because we don't really know the reasons why these shifts are happening at the minute, it's really important that us working in this kind of work really double down on our efforts to ensure that sustainability really remains integrated and promoted in our universities and our colleges and our students' unions. Just to share some of our kind of hypotheses as to why we may have seen a decline in learning or desire for learning for sustainability. We thought this may be due to kind of increased precarity in other areas of students' lives. So, for example, the ongoing cost of living crisis may mean that learning for sustainability becomes less of a priority. We know that coverage of climate change in UK media has fluctuated during the course of the research, with studies showing a drop in coverage since 2023. And another possibly more positive hypothesis is that there may be increased coverage in curriculums of sustainability, meaning that students just feel like their learning is sufficient. In the time we have for questions at the end of this presentation, we'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on this and if you've experienced similar things when trying to integrate sustainability into your institutions. Moving on then, and returning to those sustainability skills that Rachel discussed at the start of this, the chart on the left of your screen shows which skills are most commonly covered in teaching. So 3/4 of respondents reported that the skill or understanding to use different types of knowledge and ideas to help solve problems, and to ask questions and think carefully about information before forming opinions or solving problems was covered during their teaching. While 7 in 10, 70% said that the skill to collaborate and communicate well with others was included in their teaching. The chart on the right shows the opposite end of the scale, which is those skills that are least commonly covered. So just over half of our respondents, 51%, reported that the skill to think about how plans will affect different groups and communities was covered. 46% of our respondents said the skill of being able to see how different sustainability issues are connected and find solutions. And 2 in 5, 42%, said that the skill to be able to think about how plans and actions and how they affect nature was also covered. So this slide demonstrates the experiences respondents have of learning linked to climate change and to nature and to colonialism. So starting on the left then, 3 in 5 of our respondents reported learning what we can do at local and global levels to lessen climate change. and what climate change is and how it happens. Of learning experiences linked to nature, just under half reported learning what we can do at local and global levels to lessen nature loss and what the nature crisis is and how it happens. On the right, learning experiences linked to colonialism. The majority reported learning about perspectives from cultures around the world, while just over 3/4, 76%, reported learning about perspectives from groups underrepresented in our society. So we also ask students what ways of learning that they have experienced and which they find the most beneficial. So the chart on the left demonstrates the top 5 ways of learning experienced, and the right demonstrates a perceived benefit of those ways of learning for students developing skills. As you can see, these charts mostly mirror each other, which is good, with only case studies and collaborative learning swapping places, swapping first and second place. So collaborative learning, 78% of students said they'd experienced this during learning, while 77% said that this was beneficial for developing skills. Back on the other side, 71% said that they had experienced case studies during their learning, and the majority of respondents, 81%, said that this was beneficial for developing skills. This slide presents statements related to students' impressions of their place of study in terms of their sustainability action. So the statements, the two at the top, were the ones that attracted the most agreement from respondents. So 7 in 10 said that my place of study takes action to limit the negative impact it has on the environment and society. And knowing that it does this makes me proud to be a student there. The statement that attracted the least agreement was being a student at my place of study encourages me to think and act to help the environment and other people. But even then, that still attracted 62% of agreement from respondents. So I'm now going to move us on to our last section, which is thinking about sustainability and sustainability skills beyond education. This slide presents findings for what sustainability skills are covered during teaching, and how important respondents thought these skills were to future employers. Just to kind of pick out a few things here. So the skill of able to use different types of knowledge and ideas to help solve problems was reported as the most commonly covered, and also as one of the most important that students thought it was to future employers. This was the same as the skill at the bottom of that most commonly grid, which was able to collaborate and communicate well with others while being understanding and caring about their feelings and needs, as most commonly covered during teaching and as one of the ones that students thought were most important to future employers. On the kind of flip side then, the skill of able to see how different sustainability issues are connected and find solutions that consider how they affect each other was one of the least commonly covered sustainability skills during teaching, and one of the ones that students thought wasn't as important to future employers. So here we look at how well students feel like their education has prepared them to face current sustainability challenges. So we asked students how prepared they felt their education had made them to address issues like climate change, the nature crisis, and the inequalities that people face as a result of these challenges. So around 40% of our respondents felt either not at all or only slightly prepared to meet the challenges of climate change, where roughly a third felt somewhat prepared to meet these. A small minority, about 1 in 5, felt well or fully prepared to meet the challenges of climate change. We also see a similar pattern when asked about preparedness for the nature crisis and to meet the challenges of the inequalities that people will face as a result of climate change and the nature crisis. Again, the majority of respondents fall into kind of the middle or lower end of feeling prepared. On the chart on the right, so we know that tackling climate change and nature loss and achieving sustainable development will mean that employers will have to change their ways of working, and it will mean that new types of jobs are created. So we asked students how much they knew about this. About 44 to 46% of respondents felt they knew a little or nothing about these areas, and around a third said they knew a moderate amount. fewer than 1 in 5 of our respondents said they knew a great deal about these kind of green jobs and new ways of working. So my last slide looks at students' desire to work with employers with strong environmental and social credentials. So we asked students in the survey about their prioritisation of different options once they've completed their course. So we present them with various pairings. One option is a graduate position that pays more, but in a company that has a poor environmental or social record. And then the other is a position that pays less, but has a strong environmental and social record. So the chart on the left, when the pay difference is £1,000, 71% of respondents said they'd choose a company with a good sustainability record, even though it pays less. While 3 in 10 would take the higher paying job at a company with poor environmental and social standards. On the right, the chart on the right, when the pay gap is bigger, £3,000, the split becomes a little more equal, but half of students still choose a lower paying job in a company with a strong environmental and social record. That's all from our findings. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Marta, who's going to discuss responsible futures.
Thanks, Molly. I am just going to give you a brief introduction to responsible futures before handing over to colleagues from Open University and Mohawk College, who will present case studies. And that's just to kind of set the scene in which data from the Sustainability Skills Survey can be used to enhance their experience of the Responsible Futures programme. So to begin with, what is Responsible Futures? It is a change programme and accreditation mark that works to support institutions to work together with the students as partners to embed sustainability into teaching and learning. A student-led audit gives the partnership, the partnership is the institution and their students, and in the UK context, it's usually like the institution and the Students' Union or Students' Association. So that student-led audit gives the partnership really valuable feedback and recommendations directly from their own students on their sustainability work in teaching and learning, and determines whether the partnership will be receiving the Responsible Futures accreditation. We have been running the Responsible Futures programme in the UK for 11 years and internationally for 2. In I think 2 months' time. And this past academic year, we actually had participating institutions on every continent, well, other than Antarctica, because there's no actual settlements in Antarctica other than research. But yeah, we're really proud of our reach. So Responsible Futures exists to legitimise and mainstream education for sustainable development, or ESD, which is a process of education that focuses on ensuring that graduates have knowledge and understanding, as well as skills and attributes that are needed for them to contribute positively to holistic sustainability and climate justice by integrating it into their curriculum. So ESD focuses not just on what students learn, but also on how they're learning and the environment in which that learning is taking place. We really strongly believe that ESD is transformative and radical and can and should be used to support the systemic changes that are needed to realise climate justice and progress approaches to things like decolonising and decarbonising education as well. So ultimately, Responsible Futures is ensuring that students leave education with that knowledge, skills and attributes that are needed for us to have a better future, and that they leave education as part of the solution to sustainability challenges rather than part of the problem. The framework includes a really broad range of criteria that are summarised within 8 themes, which you can see on the slides. So that covers things like gaining an understanding of where students and staff are at with education for sustainability, to engaging senior leadership, including ESD in policies and practice, but also things like sharing this work with the wider sector and reflecting on its impact. And the Sustainability Skills Survey results can be, one, used as evidence, particularly in the baselines and benchmark and in the impacts and outcomes sections, but also they can provide reasoning and background as to why specific interventions or actions are being taken. Some key achievements of responsive features over the years. We've had over 50 institutions take part, reaching over 1 million students globally. Over 220 student auditors led over 50 audits over that time as well, providing them with professional development opportunities. We've held over 75 network learning meetings and events where colleagues could collaborate and learn from each other. And we've seen the partnerships take over 3,100 actions for progressing ESD. And just for a bit of a flavour of what these actions have included, it's things like passing student union policy on ESD or diversifying the curriculum, but also things like securing greater resourcing for ESD, whether that's creation of a specific job role that progresses this work, or paying for professional development, engaging senior leadership and gaining buy-in from them, conducting curriculum audits to see where the institution is at in terms of covering sustainability in their content, but also kind of more innovative ways of teaching and learning, things like establishing living lab projects, and looking at things like transforming the way the institution kind of positions sustainability, including things like including them sustainability in some way in graduate attributes. And we've also seen responsive features be a really strong tool that strengthens relationships between the university or college and their representative student body. So that's just for a quick overview, and I'm really delighted now to pass over to colleagues from the Open University, James and Teresa.
Thank you, Marta, as well.
Hi.
Take control.
Thanks.
And got James here.
Okay, thanks very much, Teresa. I'm James Warren and I'm joined by Teresa Cox, and we're going to talk to you for the next 10 minutes about I suppose our first year of Responsible Futures, how we got through the accreditation, and what it means to think about student-led sustainability as part of the partnership between Open University students and Open University staff. And you can see on this first slide, that's a picture of some of our student representatives. That's Jess Smith on the far right, laughing there. And that's one of our student representatives dressed up as a banana, because one of the things that we rolled out was a program around how bad are bananas as part of our carbon literacy training initiative. So I'll just see if I can navigate forward. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Open University students say in the sustainability skills survey, and I'm looking at last year's results, if that makes sense, and I'm comparing it to the year before the SOS UK results. So it's a little bit out of phase, but I hope that's okay, because some of the trends that you're going to see still hold strong, if that's the right way to say it. At the OU, we had just under 250 responses, which isn't very high in the context of the Open University, and I can talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But what was interesting for us to see is that in those main questions about your place of study actively incorporating and promoting SD and promoting it through all courses, we see that the OU students are about 8 to 10% lower. But really strikingly, is sustainable development something that you want to learn more about? We've got a very big drop compared to the baseline, and as Molly was talking about earlier, the recent survey has shown that has dropped again from 65 to about 55%. So it's lower at the OU to start with, and we wondered why that is. So we unpacked that question 3 quite a bit to try to figure out why do students answer this question about sustainable development. And it's really interesting when you look at those results in particular. If you just park the strongly agree and agree results and think about those students that say, I don't know, I'd rather not say, or leave it blank, it's about 10%. That matches with some of Molly's earlier stuff. And those that neither agree nor disagree is about 30%. So we're seeing about 40% of our students kind of, if I put it this way, sitting on the fence about ESD in their learning. So to us, that's a signal as educators and collaborators with our students that we're probably not doing enough in terms of the basics. That's what I think. That's how I read this. But I want to unpack this a little bit more if I can. Why do open students want to learn more about sustainable development? Again, the subset of students that answered this in free text was smaller than the overall set, but we analyzed this in a very similar way that SOS UK analyzes it by taking, the first 100 or the first 200 or 300 responses and then thematically putting them into order and looking at them. And you see that the top one that comes up again, for us at least, for our students, is that students want to learn more. They want to know, and they express a lack of knowledge. In the free text, there's a clear strand of students that say, I'd like to learn more, I'd like to do more for the environment, but I don't know what to do. Can you help me? Can you tell me what to do? There's also a strong strand around the professionalism. So we have a lot of students, it won't be a surprise, that are earn and learn students, and they're very keen to either change careers or go up the ladder in their own career. And so that's a strong theme that we see. But if you take those bottom 3 and add them together, you also see that general strand around sustainability, one planet, concern for generations, is also a very large cohort of students if you lump them together as one theme for this question. And what students told us about this, I'll just share a couple quotes here. Like one student that I quoted there, I'd like to learn more. Part of the reason why I chose environmental studies BSc honors is to learn about sustainability and sustainable development and what I can do in part of my role to change the world and move to a new career. And then another person, in a very open way, said, this is important for all students. How do we address the climate crisis? It should be taught explicitly. And we did get some other comments that said it should be taught explicitly in all modules and in all awards. So I think that was very, very nice to hear. On the question of what should your university be doing in their place of study to take action with sustainable development, again, this is a subset of that larger 230 students, so not everybody answered it. And again, you see that 29% said it's not applicable to me, and another 9% said I'm not sure. So we see that kind of 35 to 40% not quite clear about what to say, But those that do have something to say have a very strong message. And they're quite intelligent things. They thought very carefully about what does it mean to be an open distance learner, studying at home or in a remote location most of the time. And they thought about print versus media. They've also thought about, what does it mean for my subject with respect to online learning and e-learning and the impact of video and embodied carbon. So I think that was very nice to hear. And then a few others asked about the everything days that students could do to reduce their own footprint. Could the OU, could their own university be teaching them more about how to reduce their own footprint at home, as well as thinking about the footprint on campus? We still do have a campus. We have lots of masters and higher degrees, meaning PhD students that come to campus on a regular basis. And then we have occasional um, in-person student events on campus, and then students were very aware of that and mentioned what happens on campus. And lastly, I want to say a little bit about how students learn on their course. This mirrors some other work that Molly showed earlier, and it probably shows some of the same trends, but maybe a little bit different, that open students really like the case studies, the project work, and the problem-based learning rise to the top with a little bit of the stimulus activities as well, whereas you provide something and then the learning snowballs. And what you see is the participatory, the group work, and activities, trials, gaming. You could say climate change modeling would fit in simulation as well, being at the lower end. And what I might argue, maybe as an educator, but maybe also as a student, is that simulation participation and group work are some of those kind of things that we need to work on more to build and solve the really complex problems of ESD and the interconnectivity. So it will be interesting for the OU to look again at this question this year and see if that's changed at all in our most recent round of surveys. And then the last thing I wanted to share was some other work from other student surveys. So many universities do many surveys. Lots of UK universities are involved in the National Student Survey. And I wanted to show the 3-year trend of the optional questions around sustainability and environmental practice. They're not exactly the same as the questions that are in SOS UK. However, they do track really well. And these just came out, I believe, in July this year. And what I would like to say is these do mirror some of Molly's results in the sense that I've marked the first one amber, the Open University encourages good environmental practice, as being 3 to 4% down. It's back to the 2023 baseline, which is worrying. And the other two, my course encouraged me to think about ESD, and I've had opportunities to take part in ESD activities. I've marked as red because they're below the 2023 baseline, whereas we thought they might be stabilized or they might be the same as 2023. Now, there were some peculiar things about the National Student Survey for the Open University in the 2025 period when it opened from February to Easter. So there are some issues and we need to look into that. But I wanted to give that snapshot to say that there may be other indicators at your university that also show that engagement in sustainability may be down. So lastly, a summary about our first year as we go into our next year of RF accreditation. What students have told us, we've learned so much from this first year. although the cohort is small, that answers that survey. It's been really useful because we've looked at those quotes, we've tried to extract some really interesting things in there, and we found that the student responses are aligned with what students say in a broader national survey, which has a lot more students answering it. But it's pointed us to other areas for further work and investigation, and we want to follow that up. And do you want me to talk about responsible futures, Teresa, or would you like to jump in?
I can jump in, but
Jump
no,
in.
thank you so much, James, because you've done the heavy lifting on this. But it was just to say this survey's helped us hugely, because whilst we've got the NSS data, it doesn't give us that sort of deep dive what the SOS UK survey does in terms of having a whole breadth of questions, and the free text has just been incredible. And this has led us to use this for kind of scholarship and further research, as James mentioned. So I think it's we can use it in other places, which is really exciting. It is telling us a lot about what's going on, but in terms of responsible futures, this really helps as a lever to have those conversations in the university, because we know the embedding is patchy, and I think having this evidence is really key for us to say we need to do something about it and respond to what we're seeing here. So it's a positive, whilst the data's going in a decline. It helps us in other ways to have those conversations with colleagues and ensure that we continue with that embedding work. But thank you.
And I just want to say thanks to the OU students who responded to the survey and helped provide the raw data. And also thanks to Jessica and Jess, who've been two of our students, one at master's level and one at undergraduate level, who have been helping us analyze the results. And we are in the process at the moment of writing them up in a formal paper summarizing all the outcomes. And we'd be very welcome to share that draft paper as it becomes finalized. We have left some other slides in the end, which give some more comparative data. But I will just pass over them because I believe we've got to pass on now to Mohawk.
Great, thank you. Hello from Ontario, Canada. I'm Alison Maxted. I'm the manager of the Sustainability Office at Mohawk College, and I'm joined today by my colleague Nerla Cruz, Associate Dean in our School of Climate Action, and we're excited to share our experience conducting a student sustainability survey. We're being in Canada, we don't have something like the UK Sustainability Skills Survey. Of wish we did. It's a wonderful initiative. So we have sort of taken inspiration from that and developed our own survey. And that initiative has helped us elevate our student voice and shape how sustainability is embedded across our institution. So just before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that Mohawk College is situated on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. We recognize and respect the enduring presence and contributions of Indigenous peoples to our community and to sustainability leadership. So just to quickly give you some context, Mohawk College is a public institution in Hamilton, Ontario, serving over 30,000 learners across 4 campuses. We're mainly known for applied learning, strong industry ties, and we have a diverse student body coming from over 80 countries. Our commitment to equity, Indigenous inclusion, and global career readiness is central to our mission, and sustainability is a key part of that. So Mohawk College does have a long-standing reputation for sustainability leadership. We were among the first Ontario colleges to establish a sustainability office and environmental management plan. We've invested in student-led initiatives, Indigenous spaces, and landmark projects like Canada's largest zero-carbon institutional building in 2018 and Ontario's largest solar carport. And one of our earliest moves to ensure students had a meaningful role in shaping sustainability at Mohawk College was the creation of the Sustainability Initiatives Fund in 2014, and that was in partnership with the Students' Union. So we have had that partnership dating back just over a decade now. And that's a student levy that supports campus sustainability projects and student learning opportunities in sustainability.
In recent years, we've taken bold steps to deepen our commitment. We launched a climate action plan, embedded sustainability goals into our academic plan, and we've opened a Center for Indigenous Knowledge, Relations, and Learning, and committed to embedding Indigenous learning outcomes into all of our programs. We've also joined the Responsible Futures International Pilot, and this helped us to elevate our collaboration with our students and our student association. Lastly, we've launched the School of Climate Action, a first of its kind academic hub focused on climate education and applied learning.
Okay, so on to our student survey. So conducting a new sustainability student survey was identified as a top priority by the Responsible Futures planning team that we established during our pilot year in the Responsible Futures program. We have done surveys in the past at Mohawk College around sustainability, but this particular survey was really designed to provide clear, actionable data for a number of initiatives, including guiding how we invest that Sustainability Initiatives Fund that I mentioned, which is right now undergoing a renewal of focus on how that fund gets used. We're also developed it to advise us on how we prioritize our student programming and also how we integrate sustainability into curriculum and the new School of Climate Action in ways that reflect student values and aspirations. So we made sure that students, as well as some key staff involved in these initiatives, were helping to develop those questions so that the survey would be relevant to those initiatives. The survey was also unique for its scale. We were able to engage over 2,000 students across all of our campuses and all of our programs. We promoted it through hallway booths, digital outreach, a prize draw, and then the Students' Union also promoted it through their channels. They have really good engagement with students. So we were able to get lots of responses through that. And the goal was to ensure the results were representative as possible. So as with the Student Sustainability Survey, it was neutral promotion to try to get all kinds of students answering the question, not just those already interested in sustainability. So we don't have a lot of time to go into our actual results, but we will share a few key highlights. And then if anyone's interested, we'll be able to share the report that we have of all of our results. We'll share that out through SOS UK to the audience here.
So the results are quite compelling. Over 95% of respondents agreed that colleges should include sustainable development, not only in their operations, but also their teaching and learning. Over 90% supported that higher education should not only do that, but also be involved in shifting societal values towards responsible consumption, equity, and a healthy environment. And over 85% of respondents considered a college's social and environmental impact when choosing where to study. We thought this was really interesting because this is how students are selecting their future choice in education. Nearly all students surveyed, about 19 and 20, want to make a meaningful impact on sustainability in their future careers.
Students also expressed a high satisfaction with the current sustainability culture at Mohawk College and their Students' Union, but they also want more opportunities to share their opinions and be involved. So over 89% agreed with that. And so this feedback gives us a baseline to measure future progress and improve engagement.
What was really interesting about the survey results is not only did our students tell us that they wanted to learn this, but how they wanted to learn about sustainability and curriculum. So when they were asked how they wanted to learn about it, They overwhelmingly chose hands-on experience like applied learning, internship, work placements, and involvement in campus and community projects. They wanted to be involved and not just learn about it. They also wanted sustainability to be visible and practiced on campus. This reinforces the importance of experiential learning and building sustainability skills. The survey results are already shaping how we're moving forward at Mohawk College. They're helping us set priorities, improve student experience, and make sure sustainability is embedded into curriculum in ways that matter to students and their future careers. We've been using this data to guide how we invest in the Sustainability Initiatives Fund that Allison spoke to earlier, so that these dollars go towards programs and projects that students actually care about and what they want to see on campus. The Mohawk Student Association has already started including sustainability questions into their annual student forums, and the survey insights are showing up in planning conversations across all departments, across all divisions in the college. It's become a way to keep ourselves accountable, to make sure that the sustainability work that we're doing really reflects what our students want and not just institutional assumptions.
Thank you, Nair, and thanks everyone for the opportunity to share our journey. We're pretty proud of what we've accomplished with this survey, and we're excited to keep learning from it and also to keep learning from others in this network. So if you'd like to connect or have any questions, you can reach out to us, sustainability@mohawkcollege.ca. We're happy to, again, share our report results or also any tools or templates or share any lessons learned with you as well.
Cool. Thank you so much to everyone for your presentations. Really, really interesting to see all of the different findings using the similar questions, but obviously asked in different contexts and analysed in slightly different ways. So now we do have a short amount of time for questions. I can see there's a couple in the Q&A, but if there's anything that anyone hasn't added yet that they want to ask to any of our presenters, please do so in that Q&A function or in the chat box. I can see there's a question from Marie who's asked around how the initiatives will evolve beyond 2030. Any planned changes? Marie, I don't know if you're able to clarify what you mean by initiatives. I can say something about the Sustainability Skills Survey from SOS's perspective. So yeah, we have no plans to stop doing the survey. We'll carry on as long as it's still useful for institutions in the UK. We are likely to do some kind of updates again. We try not to do too many updates just because we know that universities and colleges use these the results as KPIs as key metrics that they are tracking, and changing things too much obviously interrupts that. So we might change things too substantially before 2030. But we might make some small tweaks, for example, drawing on some of the discussion that we've had today around that figure of respondents saying that they want to learn more about sustainability, whilst we do currently ask those that say they do want to learn why they want to learn more. We don't actually ask those that are sitting on the fence or say they don't want to know kind of what their thoughts are on their desire for learning about sustainability. So that's something that we're already planning on implementing this year. Also see
I can comment a little bit about open students who rather not say or neither agree nor disagree, if that's okay. And Teresa could probably say a little bit too. But so I'm from STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I work in the environmental sciences. I guess that's not a surprise. But quite a lot of our mathematics and statistics students, sometimes when they see a question about environmental sustainability, they think in a very narrow way, if I can say that. They're in their own subject bubble, and they think, I'm here to learn about data analysis and statistics or pure mathematics, what has environmental sustainability got to do with my course? And we get that feedback in the SOS survey. So there are some students who are thinking in that way, you know, my course is one thing, but maybe sustainable development is something else for them in some way. We don't think, with respect to the hypothesis about, you know, are students already learning enough about ESD? I'm just speaking in a broad way here, so I have to be careful about Higher Education UK. We don't think the downturn is due to students saying, I don't need to learn more because I already know enough. If I'm allowed to say that, that's going out on a limb, but that is the impression that we're getting from our students, and the feedback from our student union as well. They would probably say, you're not doing enough. So I just thought I'd put that out there. There's probably some areas where we're doing lots and it looks great. Students are getting it all at all levels. It's embedded through all their coursework, but there's other students then that are not seeing enough of it woven throughout their content, if that's the way I can describe it.
Thanks, James. Really useful to hear those reflections. I don't know, Nair or Alison, is that something that you found within your data, kind of a difference in perceived relevance according to different subject areas?
There's a bit. I mean, we did ask students in each school on their feedback, but it was overwhelming in every school. But the topic would change a little bit. So in the School of Health, they wanted to know more about the determinants of health, obviously, right? And so there was a bit of a swing. But overall, our students wanted to learn this. They want to learn it, but mostly about their program area and their future career. So an example that always pops to mind for me as a student in computer engineering said, I want to not just talk about AI, but the impact that AI is having on our environment. Just those little pieces, right? And to the question about how will these initiatives change beyond 2030, you know, right now we're committed to, we're rolling out our Indigenous learning outcomes, Indigenous knowledge learning outcomes. And next, we're doing our sustainable learning outcomes. It's a process coming that the school is working on with our Center for Innovation. But I think in 2030, it'll be what our students need and what they want. I think it's hard to predict. I don't know if, you know, even 5 years ago, I could predict that we were going to be rolling all of this out and joining Responsible Futures. And so really having that student survey and the student voice tell us what's important to them, it has been key for us. And not having those institutional assumptions that we've talked about in our presentation a bit. And so I'm hopeful because our students overwhelmingly, I mean, 95% is such a huge number when you have 2,000 respondents, that I'm hopeful that this will still be a priority in 5 years, but I guess we'll have to see. Time will tell.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see kind of just how similar the kind of expectation from their institutions is between the two sets of results. So those figures are still very high amongst UK students, in the kind of high 80s in terms of the expectation for their institution. So yeah, there's so much going on there that it would be good to unpick through further kind of more in-depth qualitative research around that relationship between expectations for institution and then obviously kind of their own learning, and then also then the perceptions of what their employers want to see from them, as Molly highlighted in that slide, kind of the percentages of people thinking that the skills are relevant and demanded by their future employers are kind of quite universally high across all the different skills. So they're kind of obviously recognizing that these are important things for them to be able to do. But like James says, it is maybe kind of bringing in that kind of lens of their subject that seems to be a bit kind of missing in their interpretation. But I'm just conscious of the time, and we are actually at the official end of the webinar. But if there's any kind of final comments or questions that people have, please drop them in the chat or in the Q&A, or if there's something that you think of after the call, feel free to get in touch. with us at SOS UK. You can use research at sos-uk.org and we'll pass those on to the relevant contacts. But just while everyone's hopefully still on the call, we do want to just quickly flag the 25-26 survey, which is coming up very soon. It is open to UK higher and further education institutions and also those that offer apprenticeships. Any institution that receives 100 responses or more can receive their students' data, so you can have the same access to data as the OU team and do your own analysis for your students' data. The survey will be live during the 27th of October to the 16th of November, and to incentivise students to take part, though we do run an annual £1,000 prize draw for respondents. We have a range of templates and resources that are available for you to help you with that promotion. And thanks also to the Mohawk team for their tips on how to get such a great response rate earlier in their presentation. So yeah, as always, for those of you that have been part of the research before, we'll be sharing updates and communications about the survey through our own channels, and also very kindly EAUC help us to circulate these details. But if you do want to let us know directly that you will be taking part in the survey this year, use that QR code on screen now, or we can just quickly pop a survey link in the chat. If I can get it to copy. Molly, sorry, would you be able to do that? It's not copying from my screen. And yeah, as the email is in the chat now. If you have any questions about the research, do just get in touch with us at any time. All that is left to say is thank you very much to everyone who's joined us today. Thank you very much to all of our presenters for sharing all their experiences of research and the findings from those as well. And we will share the slides with you after the call, and also you can read the full report of our UK findings on our website now. We've just published that today. Thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.